Good morning, and Tom Laux from the city of Marshfield. This is our council preview. Thank you for joining me today. And I have Steve Barg, our city administrator, and we're going to talk about the council meeting that's coming up on July 23rd. Can't believe it. It's already almost the end of July.
Is that amazing?
It is amazing. It's going to be August, and I've already been here 6 months.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
You've done well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, let's get right into it. We only have about a half hour, and on the consent agenda piece, it was in Public Works on Monday night, disposition of city land. This is the piece of land by Beal Stadium.
It is, Tom, and sometimes we talk about things in consent agenda. We want people to know what's going on. They're very likely to be approved as part of an early motion. In this case, there might be some discussion because the Board of Public Works voted in favor of this by a 3-2 margin. So even among half the council, it was a divided discussion. What this is back last year, we had a long discussion about a piece of property at the corner of 8th and Hemlock, right across from Beal Stadium, the football field for years here in Marshfield. Well, it's an odd triangular shaped parcel, and for a long, long time, people have been parking on this vacant land. It's not paved, it's just dirt and gravel, and then walking across and going to the football games or other sporting events. Well, the city talked to the school district a couple of years ago and said, would you guys be interested in buying this from us or working out a deal with us, and then maybe you pave it, make it a nice parking lot. We don't really want this. It doesn't do anything for the city. It's actually a liability to us. Well, the school district said they really weren't interested at that point. So we tried last year to see if we could maybe find a way to sell it. Well, we went out and got bids. The only bid we got was from Habitat for Humanity. Council felt a little uncomfortable. There was some discussion about whether or not that would be the best use to have those homes on that property or whatever. And in October of last year, the council said, you know what, let's let this sit for a year. We'll revisit it in October of 2019 or later and see what we want to maybe do to dispose of it. Well, recently, Jason Zaleski, council member who covers some of that area of the community, came back and said, let's look at doing something sooner rather than later. Why don't we just put it out with a realtor and say, sell it for us? If the best use is to get a couple homes on there, that's great. If it's something else that meets the zoning code, whatever. And so the board discussed it the other night, Tom, and they voted 3-2 to secure the services of a realtor and market the property for sale and see what we can get. Now, how much direction we give that realtor, that may come up in council discussion too. We may say, well, we want to see at least one home on the property, or maybe we want to see 2 homes on the property, or maybe we have some other concerns about how the layout goes. Or maybe we just want to leave it to the discretion of the market, let the market forces determine. That's what's on the agenda. And like I said, unlike a lot of consent agenda items, I think this one will perhaps have some discussion.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Is there any kind of worth of the land, what the land is worth at this moment?
Well, as long as the city's owned it, it technically is assessed at 0. And I don't think we've had the property appraised. We believe, from what we've seen, that you could put 2 homes on there nicely. We once talked about with 3 fit, now that'd be too tight. One other thing I didn't mention before, Tom, is the fact that the school district has been doing a lot of new things. The new football field is going in up on the other end of town, sort of. And so the use of Beal Stadium is changing. It's still going to be used, but it won't be for high school football games. It'll be for maybe other things. It'll be soccer. It'll be younger football, whatever. So, one of the things we're still trying to assess, and that's why we wanted to delay this for a while, is traffic patterns, parking needs. But like I said, Jason Zaleski said, we don't want this property. Let's find someone to buy it and build on it.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing what the Common Council has to say, if they want to talk about it or just vote on it or pull it out. They need to pull that item out, I believe, when they want to talk about it. Well, let's move on to the next piece. As well on the consent agenda, it came up last night in our Finance and Budget and Personnel Committee. Anybody can watch those. Again, you guys can watch those ahead of time and catch up on some of these, just like the Board of Public Works. Those are on the Channel 990. So if you want to know more about that discussion we just spoke about, that's a good place to go. But let's talk about what you have highlighted here for me, Steve, and our viewers, is the CDB housing program.
Yeah, that's a community development block grant. It's money that comes from the federal government, flows through the state, and is administered at the local level. And it's funny, even council people who've been around only for a couple of years may not know what this program is about, because we don't talk about it a lot. This is a program, Tom, where people of lower to moderate income, if they qualify, can get a loan to do roofing, siding, these types of things. And they don't have to pay it back until they sell their home or the property is transferred to someone else. So let's say you're older or you have a lower income or whatever, it's a great deal. You can maybe have $10,000, $15,000 of work done that you couldn't afford otherwise. It's recorded as a lien against the property. And so when the property is sold, it's not like a city employee has to say, no, wait a minute, am I hearing that they're selling that property on 7th Street? No. When they go to sell it, you go to the property records at the county, it flags right away. The city must be repaid for $10,000 or $12,000 or whatever. We get our money, before any proceeds of the sale are distributed. So, but it's a great way to get the work done. Well, what this is about is we've had a company called Cap Services administering this for us for a long time, which means they do all the paperwork and everything, the required forms to the federal government. They don't want to do that anymore, so they've told us, look, you need to find somebody else. We're looking for people to make proposals on who would do that accounting, bookkeeping, administrative work for the city.
All right. Well, that's really good for people that can't afford getting their home fixed. Is that really what it's about?
It is. And, we have a stake in keeping the homes up here.
Yeah.
And we can't go tell people, hey, put on new siding unless it's really, really bad, and then they might get a code violation. But it's good for us if they do it. And if people can't afford to do it, they're not going to do it.
Yep.
If you don't have $15,000 to do repair work, you don't have it. So right now, Tom, we have $50,000 in the pot. So if somebody's watching this and says, I'm interested in that, contact us at City Hall. We'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
And there's also $390,000 that's been loaned out that's still waiting to be paid back as people sell their homes. So we expect to recycle even more monies as time passes.
Well,
it's a great program.
It is, and it's something I've just learned about, and I've heard about it, and I'm glad our city's being a part of it, but we'll have a little discussion on it. Let's move.
There's income limits, but we can tell you if you qualify.
All right, wonderful. Well, Gordy Earl, we've talked about him quite a bit in the past, and he's going to be honored again, which I think is wonderful. He's done really a lot of service and still is today.
If anybody I've known in my time deserves to be recognized for exemplary public service, it's Gordy Earl. I think we talked about this when he left the council back in April, Tom. Not only has he been on the council for a decade or so, but coming to all the meetings, committees, he always wanted to know what was going on. He wanted the background. He wanted to know what was happening. Would it be bubbling up to council that he'd have to vote on someday? He wanted to be aware of everything. Well, Representative Spiros, John Spiros, state representative, couldn't be here in April for that because they were talking about the budget and all sorts of things in Madison. But on Tuesday night, he's going to come here and make a special presentation of an honor to Gordy. I guess I think it might be a plaque or something. And just take time to say thank you, Gordy, for all your public service, which was so much appreciated.
All right. Well, that's good to hear coming from our state representative. He lives in Marshfield, as I understand.
He does.
And he'll actually be here today as we're taping this for a program later this afternoon. Talk about state budget. So we're going to learn. So if you guys are wanting to know more, just a quick tip. John will be here in the studio this afternoon, and we'll have it out coming out. Called Up Close, Don Nystrom.
Wonderful. And just one other note, John Spiros actually served on council with Gordy Earl for several years. And then he stepped off, and of course Rebecca, his wife, took that seat. But so they've served in the same on the same council before too.
Yeah. All right. Marshfield Mall redevelopment. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to be on the agenda for that presentation.
Well, last year, Tom, Ned Brickman of Midland Management LLC came to the city and said, malls are struggling across the country. I think you know that.
Oh, yeah.
For whatever reason, millennials and others, younger people are not drawn to malls. And a lot more work is done online, Amazon and stuff like that, online sales. So we're trying to find out ways to reinvigorate the mall. We've lost Penny's and Yonkers, and so there's some big spaces there. Well, last year they came and proposed more of an open concept to maybe get away from the mall and get it to be more like some of the things you see maybe in Rib Mountain or Plover, where there's more like a series of stores that are not part of a mall per se. They're coming this time to talk about maybe refining that a little bit. They're looking at things a little differently now. But they're definitely, what's exciting is they're definitely looking at getting new tenants, which would be a good thing for all of us. We want people to shop in Marshfield. If the stores aren't here that they want, guess what? They drive to Point, they drive to Wausau, and then they eat restaurants there, they buy gas there. So invigorating the mall is good for the city. So they're going to give an update at what their newest thoughts are and how they want to move forward.
That's great. There is definitely use of that building. It's large, nice space, great parking lot to get into. Getting businesses out front, kind of like they do also in Rothschild. Remember that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of that.
Cedar Creek.
Cedar Creek.
Yeah.
So that's something similar to what they're doing, and you know, times have changed, and they'll
Yeah.
probably change again in our
They do.
lifetime. Malls will become a thing probably in 20 years. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah.
But it does. You know, you've been around and seen a cycle, haven't you?
I
in
have,
your
and I have,
careers?
and Ned and his team have worked hard to look at what retailers we can support here.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to try and bring somebody here that a city of 20,000 can't support, but they've identified, you know, some potentials as to the kind of retailers that might do well here and be well received by our public, and so I think good things are bubbling up. He won't name names necessarily on,
Right.
on Tuesday night. In fact, he won't, but he'll give an idea of what they're trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, let's talk about a campus master plan. Marshfield Clinic. That is really, really important to know what they're going to be doing over the next several years, because we
Yeah.
have to be a part of having infrastructure for those developments.
We do, and you got some information there in front of you about this. What this is, Tom, and we've had this done with the airport, the fairgrounds, I'm probably forgetting other places. The idea of a campus master plan is to say, look, let's figure out where you expect to grow and change in the next 5 to 10 years, because we need to work together. I mean, if the fairground suddenly says, well, we're going to do this, and we say, wait, we need to improve 17th Street if we're going to do that. Well, sorry, that's our plan, we're doing it tomorrow. You know, and that wouldn't happen, but
Right.
the clinic and the hospital, I mean, the stuff that goes around there on St. Joe's and you know, McMillan Street and things like that, the sewer water improvements, we need to be in sync with them. So they've done a great job here. They got this, they worked and put this together. They brought it to Plan Commission. I guess it was received well there. If you look at what I sent you, they're talking in the next 10 years about the following projects: elevated skyway, North Tower bed expansion, East Building clinic expansion, West Building expansion, South Building retrofit to completely modernize the executive and administrative functions, all sorts of projects. And by laying this out and saying these are the things we intend to do in the next decade, that allows the city to kind of figure out what things we might need to be aware of. As I said, utilities, infrastructure, traffic patterns, and start planning for those ahead of time. So it really does show a teamwork effort between the clinic and city staff.
Most definitely. This is really some really good information, and hopefully they'll touch base with this. This is by our city planner as well. Will he be doing, Bryce will be talking a little bit about this as well?
Bryce will, and I think that there's a company that did this project for them, a consultant, I think will be up there with Bryce,
Okay.
explaining a little bit more about what went into this. And we've been asking the clinic to do this for a while, and I don't say that being negative toward the clinic, but it's a big project. But having this come together now is going to be huge for joint planning between the two entities, the city and the clinic, and that's good for everyone.
Great. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that coming up on Tuesday, the 23rd. Let's move right in. Some expansion, I should say, of a Wesleyan church.
Well, this is the church that burned down, you know,
Okay.
on Maple, just south of the library, and it was a tragic event. I'm glad people remember. Thankfully, nobody was injured, I don't believe, and our fire department did a wonderful job, as they always do. But they decided fairly early that they wanted to rebuild. So they're looking at this location. Their property is at 205 East 3rd Street, but they're looking to rezone the property at 209 South Maple Street so that they combine these two properties, and they need to be zoned correctly so that they can rebuild. So I think the real takeaway here, Tom, isn't, you know, to get deeply into the zoning weeds, but it's that they're going to combine these two parcels, and they want to rebuild Wesley United Methodist Church right in downtown Marshfield. They're excited. Their congregation, you know, wants to move forward. Like I said, they've gone through tragedy, but they have come out with resilience, and that got a thumbs up from Plan Commission. We'll see if Council ultimately feels the same way on Tuesday night.
Okay. Was this discussed recently then in planning?
It was. The Plan Commission discussed this
Okay.
and gave it thumbs up on July 16th.
Okay.
I wasn't there, Tom, so I don't know what questions or concerns
Sure.
might have been raised. You know, some people say, well, our church is the best use downtown, but I think in a lot of communities, and ours is one of them, if you think about on the south end with OLP, that, you know, that in fact, that they do fit in sometimes very nicely. And this one I think has been well received in the past. But like I said, they paused, I imagine, when the fire occurred, but they seem to want to rebuild at that site, and they want to kind of look at the footprint
Yeah.
of that.
Bring them downtown. I mean, it gets people to come downtown as well. There are shops open on Sundays and Saturdays. I don't know if this church is a Saturday or Sunday, but why not? It brings traffic. I think it's a good thing. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Rick Grams is going to present something here, something pretty pretty simple, I guess, but you never know. Municipal code on parking violations, forfeitures.
Yeah, what happens is, and we do this with some of our other things like zoning permits and stuff. Every once in a while, you need to look at it and say, are we still charging what we ought to cover our costs? We pay ordinance officers out there to write tickets, and police officers as well, and the allowable amounts by the state on some of the things go up. So we want to stay current, and there's a number of areas laid out there in what you've got in front of you where we're looking at making some changes. These include things these are non-driving things. These are not like speeding or whatever, but these are things like where you park, stopping or standing in prohibited areas, parking on the left side of the highway, parking on posted private property, those types of things, standing or stopping a vehicle on a highway by a grade school. These are things that we found that we can adjust and collect what's really more a commensurate fee for the offense. And so Rick walked through them. I'm sure he'll walk through them again, and we'll amend them appropriately.
So are these citations, I'll call them, I don't know if you want to call them citations, are they provided by the PD or ordinance or both?
I think, I mentioned ordinance. I think these are largely going to be by police patrol officers.
Okay.
I don't know if ordinance officers are authorized to make some of these citations. Maybe they are.
Okay.
Like I said, they're not moving violations. They're largely parking vehicles in improper places. But it does give the city the authority to impose fines that, like I said, are more commensurate now with where things are at today.
Well, parking illegally is very dangerous.
It is.
Especially when you can't see around an intersection and they're right on the yellow line.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you think about parking in a prohibited area or parking on the left side of a highway. These are things, especially in the dark, that can be very problematic to a driver.
Oh, most definitely. You think it's moving and it's stopped.
Correct.
That wouldn't be good. And then it requires. Then it costs money, and it could hurt injure yourself or cause a life.
Absolutely.
PCA. That's the big expansion. I have been out there looking at it. I don't know when it came since I am new in the last 6 months, but looks like a great business out there.
It is.
It's part of to do with our TIF district, right?
Yeah. PCA is the Packaging Corporation of America. They had a facility of about 120,000 square feet, I think, in Colby. They had nowhere to expand, so it wasn't a matter of us trying to lure them away from Colby. They just literally, they were bounded by Highway 13 on one side, other uses on other sides. So they came to us a couple years ago, and we came to an agreement to assist them in building in our park. And it's about a 230,000 square foot building, so about double the size. And the tax value, I believe, is about $11 million. That's the assessed value of that property. 80 jobs were going to be starting, and 100 after a couple of years. I'm not sure how many they have employed right now, but they're good paying jobs. The item for Tuesday night, Tom, is that the city did provide some assistance to help them in 3 phases. And this is what we normally do with TIF. The first payment is when you put the foundation in. Then we give you a certain amount of what we agreed to. The second phase, the biggest payment, is when you complete the building. Then we pay you the next phase. And then we hold a certain amount of money back until you finish all the landscaping and parking, all those exterior site improvements that make it a nice development. So what's happening here is that we're going to hopefully get approval for the third payment to give them that last chunk of money. The reason I really wanted to talk about it today, I just, we hear bad news all the time, Shopco and Office Max and things that are happening, and people are saying, is the city doing some positive things too? And we are. This is a development that is bringing tremendous tax base and jobs to this community and will for a long time to come. And I think even making the final payment, okay, we have to open up the checkbook, doggone it. Mm-hmm. But I'm just teasing, we've agreed to do it, is just sealing the deal of what a positive this is for economic development in the city of Marshfield.
All right. Yes, they, how long have they been there now in this, about a year?
I think the facility's been up and running for less than a year now, but it's they're doing well. The railroad track expansion is I think in place to serve them, and it's excellent. It's excellent development. All
right. Wonderful. Let's talk about an appointment here that you have highlighted for us to go over. Gordon Edwards. Appoint Gordon Edwards, I believe.
Yeah, this is one of those issues that might get a little discussion. Gordon Edwards is the Chief Financial Officer at Marshfield Clinic Health Systems. Okay. And we've wanted for a while to get more people from the clinic on our boards and committees. It's good. They're our largest employer. We want them engaged, and we thank them for the things that they do over there. They're a great employer. Well, we have a vacancy on the Economic Development Board because Michelle Brown is stepping off. And we're recommending Gordon to be considered for appointment. The thing is, if you remember, about 6 months ago, Tom, I think you were just coming on board here, there was discussion about when it's appropriate or not appropriate for people who don't reside in the city limits to be on a committee. Well, Gordon doesn't. He lives just outside the city in the country. And so the way we worded the policy that we adopted back in December of 2018, it said, it shall be expected that everybody on our committees, boards, and commissions shall be city residents. The exception being if either we can't find anyone to serve, or if someone comes forward that has certain special skills, abilities, background, education that may help that committee. And this would appear to be a candidate for that discussion, because obviously with his financial background as a CFO of the clinic, the deals we talk about making and working with developers and those kind of things, it would seem that those types of qualifications are in place. I present it today because there might be somebody in the council saying, I thought we were looking for city residents. So if ultimately Gordon's not approved, it won't be anything against him. It'll be whether or not we want to consider somebody for that position who's not a resident. But under our policy, there's certainly a reason to make the argument that somebody of that background should at least be considered for the role.
Okay. Who appoints this? Is this by the mayor or the common council?
This is the mayor, and I don't have it on here, but ultimately
Okay.
this agenda you have will say presented by Mayor McManus.
Okay.
He makes the appointments. If you remember the Police and Fire Commission, he made the recommendation of an appointment. They didn't take the first one. So it's ultimately only official if the council approves his appointment.
Okay.
And so that could happen here too, theoretically, if the council feels uncomfortable with a non-resident. But his appointment will go before them on Tuesday night for their approval.
Okay. And not to get off topic, is that on really any kind of board like this? The mayor
Yep.
appoints?
All our committees, boards, and
Oh,
commissions,
that's
he
how that
makes the
works.
appointments by city code.
And then it's approved by the council?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I believe in this case, I'm sorry I didn't look at this before I came over today, Tom, but I believe in this case, being that this person is a non-resident, I think it actually takes 2/3 of the council to say yes. Yes, we want to make an exception here because this person has exceptional skills and background.
Okay.
As opposed to normally it's just a simple majority of the body.
All right. And I believe, well, that's Economic Development Board. There are other openings for other positions.
yeah.
So my goal here, and if you guys are watching, is to help work with that with city staff to get that out so people like you that are watching may want to serve on a board. I believe that's community engagement, and the more community people we can have to help with what we're doing is why we're here.
Thank you, Tom.
So-
We have 2 openings right now in historic preservation.
Yep.
If you're interested in all the history we try to preserve downtown and elsewhere, the historic homes on 5th Street, come forward and put your name in the hat.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
And if they just call City Hall, and Amy Krogman can help with that. Get you. I know you have to write a letter. Something
Yeah,
pretty basic.
a letter or an email that just says why you're interested. It doesn't have to be anything long.
No.
So-
So, well, we're coming to the end of this show. Is there anything else that's on here that you
Well,
want?
it's not on here, but I just want to mention,
Okay.
because it was approved at the last meeting, that we go ahead now with Facebook Live.
That's right.
So people watching us today have a new opportunity.
That's right. That's our plan, and we're going to hopefully do that for the July 23rd. The meeting coming up, Facebook Live. I won't be able to comment on that until after the meeting. We can have the meeting, and they will be on there at all times, the meetings afterwards, and they'll also be on our Granicus platform. That was a question that was brought up. So there are 2 ways to view it, or actually 3, cable television as well. So.
You did an excellent job, Tom, in addressing some of the questions and concerns. I know we've been talking about this for about 3 months. Well done, and it's a good day for our citizens.
It is. So I would look forward to providing that to everyone in our communities. So, well, thank you so much, Steve, for coming by and providing this council update for our viewers, our citizens, even our city staff. I know they watch this, and it's hard to talk to 200 and some people on the city staff as being, you're the admin, but you can't talk to them all. There's a chance that they can watch this at any time and get a little bit of update of what's happening, because I know people always want to know, even our employees want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I've been told that not only do staff watch this, but also the council members themselves to get a little preview, and then, of course, citizens.
Yep.
So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Tune in 6 p.m. on the 23rd. And again, you can watch this show throughout the week, this week and part of next week, just before the Common Council meeting. So share it to others if you can, what we've discussed. So, or come on down, 6 p.m. Please, we're open. It's open session. There's comment period. It's your chance to voice your concerns at a certain time by the mayor, and I'll leave it from there. I'm Tom Laux, Communications Director for the City of Marshfield. This is Marshfield Media Access. Again, thank you for joining me and Steve Barg on our council preview.